Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Randall Richmond, and I'm the Director of Athletics here at Kent State University and a proud graduate of the NCAA Charles Wickham Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute helped me refine who I was as a man well before focusing on who I was as an administrator. Within the program, I developed lifelong friendships, colleagues, and confidants to help me discover my true purpose in this profession, which is to be a transformational leader that has a positive impact on people's lives well beyond sports. And as the great orator Big Sean often says, the energy you give is what you manifest. Peace.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Herb Courtney. Herb is the CEO of Renaissance Search and Consulting. Greetings, Herb. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you having me.
Now, Herb, Renaissance Search, you've been in business since 2020.
Yep.
I believe I met you right around when you started.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
We were at a Women Leaders in College Sports reception at either NCAA or NACTA, one of those.
NCAA, yeah.
Yeah. And you said, my name is Herb Courtney, and I'm going to start this business, Black-owned search firm.
Yeah.
Don't think there's many out there. And,
Nope.
and I'm going to do it. And you guys have grown.
We have.
I think it's, I actually wanted to have you on earlier, but I was like, I'm going to give it some time.
Yeah.
Let me let this thing grow first. I know probably like from your perspective, probably would have been better to get the PR in the beginning. But for me, let you grow, you do your thing naturally and let it grow. And then I can come on and we can talk about the accomplishments. So now the PR is tied with credibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And now the
master plan. You see your thing ahead.
That's hilarious. Let's talk about that a little bit. Started your own business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the business model you hear a lot about over the last decade, 15 years is you start a business and you go out and get a ton of funding and you just lose money for a number of years.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And it's hard to understand. And then that business gets bought out. You buy out a business because they're bringing in revenue, but they're also just constantly losing money in terms of the business. So it's just an interesting revenue model, and businesses have existed for the whole 10 to 15 years doing that, right?
Absolutely.
Uber and those kind of companies. For you didn't necessarily go out and get funding. You started a business and you go out as yourself, your best salesman, right?
Yeah.
Go out and say, this is what we do. We can help you find people. And you've gotten a few searches over time and things are working out. And now you have expanded your staff, right?
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't be able to do that unless you were able to bring in your own revenue and make things happen. So talk to us a little bit about starting a business, with specifically a business that is solving a very specific problem here in college athletics and really that growth process over the last couple of years.
Yeah, as any entrepreneur will tell you, it's a roller coaster ride, right? So, I started it late January, during that NCAA convention in February, and then a month later, COVID hits, right? So, everything shut down, people don't hire. So you got to find creative ways to stay relevant, establish relationships, keep those relationships. And the biggest thing for me, I didn't want to come off as transactional, right? I think that's the worst thing you can do when you're starting a business. So my mindset was always I wanted to do it internally, right? And fund it internally and not take a lot of debt or equity to start for a number of reasons. One is just I didn't want to take that risk.
Yeah.
Two, I think, in the search business, we don't have a lot of overhead, right? It was just me. You can work from home. I didn't want to incur those costs. So I felt like if we were able to do it the right way and kind of grow incrementally over, 6 to 12 months, I felt like we could build from that. And that's what we did. We were able to, get some great searches. Shout out to Chrissy at University of Delaware. She was our first client and took a chance on us in athletics, and we were able to do some great things. And, that was kind of the start, but you need people to take a chance on you, when you first start on business. And I think any business owner can articulate, their passion and why they're doing it. But you just have to do it in a very coherent way. So people can say, you know what, I have used maybe some other vendors in the past, but I'm going to give Renaissance and Herb a chance because I like what they're about, right? And for us, it was about creating more equity in the hiring process, right? Having more diversity in candidate pools. And, in athletics, we've done things a certain way for a long period of time. And it hasn't yielded, the outcomes, especially from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint that I think we all want and desire. So, why not try a different way? Why not use a different vendor to kind of accomplish that?
All right, which is interesting. You mentioned Chrissy being the first line of business, and she has come back to the well a couple of times, which I appreciate. Did you meet her at
I did.
that meeting we were
Yeah,
at Women
yeah.
Leaders?
I
And
met her at Women Leaders.
oh wow,
I'm an alum, but we've never met. And so she was, she was very open, and she introduced me to a lot of people, and that's just that Delaware connection that
yeah,
we had and shared. And I think you always find creative ways to use that momentum, right? So we were able to do some things for Chrissy, and then we parlay that into some other searches, and you really start to expand. And when you do a great job, and that word of mouth is the best type of business, right? When people say, hey, Renaissance did a great job, you need to use them. And that's kind of what happened for us. I didn't spend a lot of money on marketing or things like that. I wanted people to talk about us, and that was going to be our marketing, and it worked out.
it's worked out. You've done a number of searches now,
Yeah.
administrators, coaches. Talk to us a little bit about what you like about the process, right? There's a bunch of different ways search firms can approach it, and there's a bunch of different searches you've probably been a part of, but there sometimes are parts of it that you value more than the other parts, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the search process.
Yeah, I think each client is different, and you have to take that approach. Each culture is different in what they're looking for in a leader. Whether it's in college sports, we started to get in professional sports, so we just did our first front office search in the NBA. Or we have a big corporate practice as well. And the part that I enjoy the most is really getting to know the client, right? Typically we come on site and we get to speak to the stakeholders, and what do they look for in a leader? What change do they need to have or enact, and some of the challenges that they're facing, right? And I think when you take that approach, you become a partner, right? It's not, again, transactional. They're seeing you. I was like, he cares about what we think, and he's not coming with a preset of candidates or anything like that, but they're really taking the time to get to know us first and then start the search. So I really like that piece of it. I love working with candidates, right? I think, the right opportunities, when you're able to place somebody, it can change their life, right? And so that is a pretty cool experience when someone's super happy to get a job, and they know, like, what, this is something I've always wanted, and I worked hard my whole career to get here, and I'm able to be an AD or an executive or a coach or a head coach. So I think that is a really, really good experience. And then, just the process, right? I think like I said, every firm has their own process, but for us, is staying true to that, and making sure that we're doing our due diligence, and getting, like I said, really getting to know both candidates and the client, and delivering a great experience for both parties. I don't think candidates should feel like they had a bad experience because we're an extension of the client, right? So I think making sure that both parties feel valued is another piece of it that I really enjoy.
You talk about entrepreneurship, and those who have been entrepreneurs and don't go the debt and equity way. You're the for the lack of a better term, you're the CEO and a janitor, right?
Yeah,
I mean everything.
Everything in between.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder about the challenges, right? The challenges you have as you tried to grow the business, the challenges of talking to people and helping them believe that you are the person to help them find the people they want for their business to be successful.
No, absolutely. I think when you first start something, you got to do everything, right? You do the search, you do the invoicing, you do everything, and that's great, because once you build the business, you understand what it should look like, right? When you hire, you can really teach your employees, right? This is how I want it to be done, because we've had a high level of success doing it. So, I think it's something that you should go through, right? And you can appreciate your employees more wherever they are in your organization, whether it's an entry level position or you have someone on your senior staff, because you've done all those things and you can speak to experience. So, for me, that's just part of the journey. And I think now part of my journey now is as we continue to grow is how can I get maybe more, not in the weeds as much and be more strategic in where we want to go and how we want to execute. So, I think when people think of Renaissance, they think of Herb Courtney.
Yeah.
But when people think of Renaissance, I want to think of my team, right? So they know they're getting the same service. If it's Herb Courtney or Andre Johnson or Adam Gordon or GGSE or Kelly Brooks, those are the individuals that are going to deliver a high level of service no matter who
Right.
is on that search. So that's kind of where we are in our process. We're not there yet, but that's where I need to go.
I wonder if you think about how our businesses, specific like softwares or technology, create a product, put the product out there, gauge how successful it's doing, and maybe gauge customers to decide if it's time to innovate.
Yeah.
What is the innovation in the search industry? Is there an aspect of like providing professional development services, or what is the innovation there? And then when you talk about strategic thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
How far ahead do you want to be able to do whatever innovation you might be thinking about?
No, absolutely. I think there's a ton of innovation, for us or just the industry.
Yeah.
Analytics are coming into it, right? So how can your firm integrate analytics into how we measure success? I think how the service that you can provide, you talk about tech, can you make a SaaS model off of
Right.
that, right? So it's like, there's so many things that you can really, spawn off and innovate and create, differentiators for your organization. You just have to be strategic in it and what makes sense and where you're trying to go. Like
Right.
my vision is, we want to, be a more holistic firm, right? Instead of maybe just athletics. So is it an acquisition? Is it, that's where the strategy
Yeah.
comes in,
Right,
which
exactly.
gets me excited, so no, those all those things that I feel come into play as you start to grow and innovate and change. And, I think for our business, especially a service business, you change with people, right? Behaviors change, people change. So we have to change, right? So there's that also natural evolution of us as the landscape changes. When I started the firm, right, it was right before COVID. There was no work from home or it was less work from home or remote. Now that's
The
that's
thing.
here,
Yeah.
right? So we got to change, right? And how are we providing services for our clients and candidates and meeting them in that platform or medium? So I think change and innovation will happen naturally, but there's also things from a trend standpoint that, you just really want to, see what the bigger firms are
Yeah,
doing
right.
and how you can integrate those principles in your organization.
Yeah, which is interesting. You name some of your team members, right? And you think about when you started, you had your own process, which, may behind the scenes, it may have been sloppy, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
you're figuring it out,
Yeah.
but this is what we do and we got it done, right? Hired, yes, right? But then you have a team and now you want to explain your process to people as you bring them on.
Yeah.
You're not going to explain a sloppy process,
Right.
right? So tell me about that in terms of having like a formula, and now you have people working with you and you have to teach that formula that you may have came up with loosely when you started, but now there's somebody else involved, so you got to sharpen that formula.
Yeah. So there's two things for that. So for one, one of my hires, Andre Johnson, who was coming from the corporate side, he was at Nordstrom's and Capital One, very process oriented organizations, right? And then I work with an individual, Olivia Gudera, who's a part of my team, one of the smartest people I work for. She was more on the operation side at Adidas, and that's where we connected. And so I brought all three of us got together and said, hey, we are going to grow. Andre has the process. Olivia has the operations piece. How can we operationalize this, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
making sure that, when we hire, people know exactly what to expect from an email to our our process, recruiting process, to how I want to interact with clients and candidates. So I was really creating a playbook, right? So we got together, we created this playbook. It's a decent sized document, but anyone who's hired by Renaissance Search and Consulting will get this document and they'll know exactly what to expect,
Yeah.
right? And that just helps that process. Now, obviously, we're going to have to, whoever their manager is or supervisor will help them along that journey. But at least there's something tangible to, from emails and everything else where they can say, hey, all right, this is how it should look, right? And it'll help that process
Yeah,
for us.
what I like about what you just this adventure you just described was, so you have this thought, and you start executing on the thought. Then you realize, okay, at this point, you know what, I feel like we could do this better. Let me bring some other people in
Yeah.
and have them help me and us grow as an organization and provide these things that I don't necessarily have, but you guys can do it for me. So you bring people in for a specific thing and they help you grow.
Yep.
I think that's excellent, right?
No, I appreciate it. And the biggest thing I've learned, and this is not groundbreaking information,
Yeah.
but it's, when for a organization that's not very mature, you need to have great people and great processes, right? So, you need to hire great, which I felt like we've done a really good job, that people that embody, Renaissance and our mission and vision. And then we are putting processes together, systems that create sustainability, right? And I think I really wanted to invest in that, and you see where that could take us. But at least, it's not going to be sloppy, right?
Yeah.
As a new organization in the market, you have to come super buttoned up,
Right.
and that's what I want, right? From how we operate, from how we,
How you show up,
how we show up and
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
I want to be buttoned up, like they got their stuff together, and really portray that image. So that all kind of helps with that process.
Yeah, it's that image is interesting too, because in football, Coach Hayden Fry coached at Iowa for a long time, and his coaching tree was far and wide, from Bob Stoops to Brett Bielema to Bill Snyder and a whole bunch of other people around the country who coached. And in the 80s and 90s, when they recruited, they would always go out in a tie and button up,
Yep.
instead of showing up in the khakis and a polo like the other coaches did. And everybody knew, okay, this is a program that's well run there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when other athletic directors or other coaches saw, and they were asked for recommendations of who can represent our football and our campus well, they refer to the people from the Hayden Fry staff because of how they represented themselves. And so that's what you're doing now. I don't know if you're going to go out and have a bunch of search coaching trees out there. People that work with you, but
I hope not. Hopefully we could keep them.
Yeah,
but...
right. But it can't hurt to show up well and make sure
Absolutely.
people understand and know what they expect. I asked you a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap. Thinking about the process and thinking about working with leaders who are looking to hire other leaders. Do they describe the role to you? I guess presidents, ADs, coaches, whoever you're hiring for. You mentioned professional sports search you recently did. They describe the role to you, and then I imagine they also describe the type of person and possibly the values they have as an organization they want their people to match. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really important to take a deep dive into, some people call it cultural fit. I actually hate using the word fit because I feel like it's very exclusive, but they're the qualities and characteristics that you need in a leader is super important to understand. And it's important for the client to understand that.
Right.
Sometimes, they don't understand what they need at that moment, right? But when you're talking through those things and saying, hey, what is this person being asked to do? What are the resources that they will have at their disposal to execute that? And then building out a plan to say, all right, actually, if we don't have as many resources and, you're looking for this type of coach, then, or administrator, maybe we should look at this, right? Someone who's done more with less, right? That won't be frustrated and that can do the job. So it's really, that is I would think probably one of the most important parts of the process, really ironing that out so we're all aligned. Because when we aren't aligned and we do bring candidates and then they're like, you know what, this is not what we're looking for, then I feel we failed because we should have communicated that on the front end.
Right.
So for us, that's one of the first things we do, and that's why that site visit is so important in our process.
Yeah. A final question here is as a person, you want to be humble.
Yep.
But in terms of business and in terms of credibility, you kind of have to talk about yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wonder for you, you don't walk around and just say, I did this search, I did this. And I have met search firms that do that.
Mm-hmm.
First thing out of their mouth is, we handled the search for these schools, right?
Yeah.
But there's an aspect of that you have to do. I wonder for you about what are your methods of letting everybody know, we've done these searches, we found this kind of people, and we can handle whatever you bring to us.
No, that's a great question, because I struggled with that.
Yeah.
I'm a private person. I don't really like flash, but people need to know what you are doing,
Exactly.
right? Especially as you're growing a business. So, for us, I did use a consultant, for our kind of social media and, with the graphics and what we're doing. And there's also things that you can celebrate, right? Whether it's through social media or other platforms to let people know, what you're doing. So I do think is that we could celebrate, the people that we placed and congratulating them. That's kind of doing that without saying, hey, this is what we did, look at us. But, we're kind of putting the attention on the client and the person, right? And it's not about Renaissance, and it isn't. It isn't about us. I do want to make it about the clients and the people that we're able to place. So for us, everything, all the touch points and what we put out there, I want it to be authentic. I don't want it to be, oh, look at me. I want it to be, let's celebrate us, right? Let's celebrate, the people that we've been able to help and impact. So we've been able to do that. I feel pretty tastefully, in my opinion. You come to these events and like, wow, I see you just placed this person, not Renaissance, right? It's just, hey, so I like that, and then, obviously your clients and the people that you place or candidates that's gone through your process talk about you.
Right.
What do you think? And when you're in these breakout sessions and people are talking about their experience, I want to say, you know what? I was in a process through Renaissance, and they really took care of us, and they made sure we felt valued in that process. That for me is the biggest compliment, whether it's a candidate or a client. So when we have those type of conversations and people are speaking like that about us, I think that's the best marketing that, we could have.
Yeah, which is excellent. Well, Herb, I've seen what you've done from the day I met you at that Women Leaders conference. I mean, it was a reception, right?
Yeah, it was a reception. Yep, absolutely.
And to the point where you talked to Chrissy there, met her first client, and things have grown since then. I've watched you very closely, and I appreciate what you do for the industry in terms of helping people of color and people in general get jobs. Really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. That was Herb Courtney. Herb is the CEO of Renaissance Search and Consulting. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.